Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Estyn's podcast on the school curriculum in Wales. I'm Claire Morgan, Strategic Director, and I'm pleased to welcome you to what is going to be a really interesting 30 minutes because we'll hear directly from our head teachers. Now, each year in January, we publish the Chief Inspector's annual report, and this summarises our findings across all aspects of our work. But today's podcast will be an opportunity to focus in on the curriculum. Now, joining our panel today is Tony Bate, HMI. Tony is one of our primary lead inspectors, but is also co-author of this year's annual report. So welcome, Tony. Thanks for joining us.
Diolch yn fawr.
We're also delighted to be joined by Amy Newton and Judith Russell. Amy is acting co-head teacher in St Julian's School in Newport. Welcome, Amy.
Diolch.
And Jude is head teacher, Langstone Primary School, also in Newport. Thanks for joining us, Jude.
Diolch. Thanks for inviting me.
Now, we inspected both these schools in the last academic year, and we've invited Amy and Jude here to really find out more about what's happening in their schools around the curriculum. Just a reminder that their school inspection reports are available on our website, and all our other inspection reports are published on the Estyn website. And you'll also find some other interesting school improvement resources, spotlights around different themes as well. So please have a look at our website. So let's make a start. I mentioned our Chief Inspector's annual report, and I'm just wondering if Tony will give us maybe a brief overview of some of the messages, and then maybe focus in on some of the messages around the curriculum.
Great.
Diolch, Tony.
Well, thank you, Claire. Just to summarise then our findings from the cross-cutting theme around the curriculum, I think I'd probably highlight three key themes. The first of all would be the vision and the leadership that schools need to demonstrate in implementing the curriculum. I think we saw a lot of schools having clear vision about how they want the curriculum to look. Clear, strong leadership at different levels around bringing people together and implementing the curriculum as a team of people, strategically thinking about what they want the curriculum to deliver and how they're going to go about that work. Secondly, the link between the curriculum and high quality teaching. Our inspectors saw that the best schools, the most successful schools, have leaders where they have created a strong link and unrelenting focus on improving the quality of teaching so that the curriculum is delivered well in their schools. And I think the third aspect would be the actual curriculum design and implementation itself. So where we saw effective curriculum design and implementation, it nearly always involved creating engaging learning activities for pupils, things like developing their independent thinking skills, their problem-solving skills, giving opportunities for pupils to develop their literacy, their numeracy and their digital skills across the curriculum, and also things like community engagement, where schools would use their community resources, external organisations, visits to other places, and kind of develop that sense of conniving by incorporating the history and the geography of the local area, Wales, and the wider world into their teaching. Schools also making meaningful links within and across areas for learning. Successful schools ensure learning experiences support pupils' development towards the four purposes of the curriculum. Where we saw practice that was perhaps a little less effective in a few schools, they lacked some of those elements that I've just mentioned. So, for example, over-directed learning, limiting pupils' engagement and independent thinking, inadequate focus perhaps on improving teaching quality, and underdeveloped professional learning opportunities for staff. Some schools also had a weaker understanding of progression and low expectations, leading to superficial links between subjects. So although that's ending on a bit of a downer, we overall saw really good curriculum development in the majority of schools across Wales. So there's some really good points, really good practice happening out there. And I'm sure we'll hear from Jude and Amy about some of that practice that's evolving in schools currently.
I mean, there's very strong messages in there about the importance of high quality teaching, and also some strong messages about the importance of leadership.
Yeah, I think having that strategic thinking about how you want to implement curriculum in your school is crucial. And that then evolves to carefully thinking about the link between curriculum and high quality teaching. What kind of things can we ensure that our professional team are aware of what the curriculum is, aware of the benefits of it, and link good practice that many schools already have in teaching and bridge that link to the curriculum for Wales so that it's delivered in a sensible, thought-out way. And we've seen many schools who have taken a lot of time to think about some of the things that they're doing really well already, and how that can be complemented by new approaches, new thinking, new professional learning. And, I think in Wales we went through a period where we experimented with a lot of really interesting teaching, really interesting approaches to developing the curriculum in schools. And a lot of this has worked really well on the ground. Many of our inspectors seeing some solid practice, and we've published some reports during that academic year where we've seen that as well. So yeah, leadership is essential for it. That doesn't mean just a senior leadership team or head teachers in the school. It means people across the organisation, across the teaching staff and support staff as well, being aware of what they're trying to do, what they're trying to deliver, and aiming for a certain outcome from their curriculum development.
Diolch, Tony. You can see there's quite a lot of information there to take in. But what we'd like to do now is to concentrate on the effective practice. I think we'll start with Amy and have a chat about St Julian's. But we picked up quite a lot of interesting and effective practice when we inspected at St Julian's, and it would be good to unpack that a little now. I think when our inspectors were looking at the curriculum, there was quite a lot of discussion about getting the intent and the content of the curriculum right. And you talked about deep learning and skills. And I wondered whether you could expand a little on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So when approaching designing our curriculum and taking what was a very abstract framework to sort of concrete level, we started by asking all subjects to really consider what's the purpose, what's the point of your subject, what's the point of modern foreign languages, of science, of geography. And this really helps subjects to consider what do we intend for learners to be able to achieve, demonstrate, understand, feel, be by the end of their school journey, having studied these different subjects. In other words, what would a great geographer or scientist look like? We also surveyed almost all of our students as well to find out more about our community and the needs of our learners as well. So we asked them questions about their lifestyles, their views, their beliefs, their actions taken outside of school. And this ranged from, there's all sorts of things, the foods that they eat at home, the places that they visit or not, as we found out, and whether they felt represented in the curriculum. And then supported by this information and the statements of what matters, we asked our departments to identify some overarching key conceptual knowledge that would really drive the intent and purpose of the curriculum. And not just the knowledge, but the skills as well that students need to access and demonstrate their knowledge. And it was essentially asking them what's going to make a great historian or a great mathematician. And then from here, subjects and very much autonomy within subject areas, they identified the best context to exemplify that conceptual knowledge through. So really thinking carefully about the content and carefully selecting and sequencing there were two key questions we asked all departments to consider, and it was the why that, so why that topic, why that context, and why then? Why at that point in their journey, why at that point in year 7, 8 or 9, for example. And this led to subjects selecting and sequencing content in a way that could move learners from being a novice to what we hope by the end of their school journey will an expert over time. We have so in place now long-term curriculum plans, and as part of this, each department identified exactly and precisely what they wanted students to be able to understand and learn by the end of each of those contexts. So really thinking about the intent, again, keep coming back to that question, being very clear about that. And that really helped with assessment as well, because I think it helped every department to think, well, if this is the intent, what exactly will be assessing and how are we going to do that? And that process was very much underpinned by the principles of progression. And you asked about deep learning, Claire. Our approach very much aligns with our school vision for learning and teaching, which is that learning is the long term. It happens in the long term. It's about students retaining. So our curriculum embraces ideas from cognitive science about how to develop memory and combat forgetting. It's very much rooted in evidence and research. And our professional learning programme around curriculum development and design has been very much focused on that. So helping students to develop complex schemas and ensuring that if it's worth teaching, it's worth remembering, and we've designed our curriculum very much in a way that supports that because of how the content's been selected, sequenced and taught as well.
That's really interesting. You hinted on taking it from the intent into implementation. And I know we've spoken about that as a school, you started with an agreed understanding of learning before you developed it any further. And I think you had 4 stages then that you unpacked. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I've said, our approach to curriculum design was very much influenced by our definition of learning, which is that learning is the long-term retention of new knowledge and the ability then to apply that to unfamiliar contexts at a later date. So the importance of long-term learning feeds very much into our school mission, which is a school for all, where every student can succeed. And one aspect of success is gaining qualifications. And in order to gain qualifications, you've got to be able to apply your knowledge and understanding at a later date. So we very much see learning as a process which starts in the short term with engagement, because if you haven't got students engaging, they can't learn, they can't make any progress. And then we talk about that moving into what we say is performance. And what we mean by that is students acquiring, developing and demonstrating new knowledge. So answering questions, completing tasks that demonstrate their knowledge and understanding. However, just because it's been taught, it doesn't mean it's been learnt and understood and remembered. So we next focus on moving learning into the long term. So our next phase of learning, what we call our 4 learning principles, the third area is remembering. So we use strategies that support students in being able to recall that knowledge and understanding and explain it in their own words as well. And then lastly, our 4th step is around applying. So ensuring that as teachers, we're supporting students in being able to apply their knowledge and understanding at a later date to different contexts, like I said, for exams, but also, more importantly, for the world beyond St Julian's as well, so they can apply that knowledge and understanding beyond their journey with us. And we provide developmental support, a developmental programme around this in terms of developing teachers' understanding of the different pedagogical approaches that they can use to support engagement, performance, remembering and applying. And as I think I've mentioned already, this is all informed by research and evidence, where we give then teachers the autonomy to decide how to best meet the needs of learners for the classes that they teach in their own lessons. But what's important is that it impacts on learning and they're held accountable for that.
I think you've led me into my question. We often ask schools about the impact of their strategies. I mean, what you've described is really interesting. It's well thought out. But how do you know it's having an impact on pupil progress?
Yeah, so we've got now, as a result of I would say, last 3 sort of years of a body of work, are really well embedded processes which allow us to really robustly and forensically continually monitor, review and evaluate learning. So we use monitoring, evaluating and reviewing processes to both evaluate the intent but also the implementation of our curriculum. So in terms of intent, evaluations of plans are carried out by senior and middle leaders, but also at subject level by teachers. So that's been a really important part of our work, is empowering teachers to be able to evaluate, giving them the tools and the strategies and the knowledge. So we've got scrutinies of those long-term plans that I referred to, and also medium-term plans to look at the intent and to evaluate the intent. And this happens during department meetings, at inset days, but also through line management meetings with curriculum leaders as well. It's a regular agenda item for us. We discuss curriculum a lot. We're also looking at the quality of assessment as well. So we monitor, review and evaluate the quality of summative assessment in terms of how does that capture that long-term learning, going back to our vision for learning. And I've got to say, we've probably created a bit of a beast. I always say this, that the more knowledgeable that staff have become in terms of how to effectively design a curriculum and being able to better evaluate a curriculum has led to ongoing adaptations, refinements, and sometimes whole-scale changes as well for some departments. And that can be a little frustrating, when you're trying to look for sort of meaningful and authentic context across the curriculum, where there are connections, because they're ever changing. But also, I think it's brilliant, in my opinion, that we've got curriculum leaders that do evaluate. That's part of their job. It's part of their day-to-day work. And I think it's what great curriculum leaders have probably always done to support progression in learning. And then when it comes to evaluating the implementation, we look at the impact that learning has on pupil progression. So we're looking at both what we teach and how we teach it, the curriculum content and the pedagogy. And we evaluate it under the 4 learning principles that I spoke about. And we have a very robust approach to that. We start with the teacher. We ask the teacher, what do they feel is working, what's not working in terms of the impact it's having on learning, because the teacher knows the class the best of anybody that will pop into that room at any point in the year. And then we look at work. We look at the work of a particular class, and we look at all pupils' work focused on learning, teaching and assessment. And then that leads then to a pupil discussion. And we've really changed our approach to using learners to evaluate the implementation of the curriculum, because we're really testing, has the intent been met? Do they understand and remember what we intended for them to remember and to learn well? So it is low stakes, but we get the mini whiteboards out and we will test them on, your teacher thinks you will remember, know, understand, be able to demonstrate this, and can they? Because that helps us to really evaluate if what we're doing is working or not. We visit then lessons as part of this process, and then hold feedback and reflection sessions with the teachers again, just to be able to bring that together so that it's the approach is everybody's involved essentially in evaluating. And that gives us a full picture about the quality of learning and teaching and the curriculum, and the middle leaders follow up on that depending on what perhaps a strength or an area for development may be. And to summarise, really, that allows us to evaluate the progress being made for different groups, in different year groups, and in different subjects as well. And I'll finish on the point that given the curriculum has been designed to support progression, that was our starting point, and to support progression in learning, it's therefore evaluating our curriculum design when we're looking at the quality of learning and teaching.
Great. Thanks very much, Amy. There's quite a lot to think about there, but you can see how you've taken the school through that process of developing and implementing the curriculum, but also making sure there's strong evaluation to make sure you're having the impact that you intended to have at the start. So that's really interesting. Thanks very much. When I read the report, we might have time for one last question. There was a strong inclusive agenda coming through the report. It's a really good inspection report to read. I'd recommend it. But that sort of inclusive approach sort of permeates right through the report and through all sections, including your Learning Development Centre. And I wondered whether you could just, spend a minute or two telling us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the centre provides a nurturing and caring environment and a stimulating curriculum that is really tailored to the needs of the pupils that attend our LDC. And it was all about ensuring that curriculum was relevant for those learners. And it will enable them to make good progress from their starting point. So I've got to be honest, the process in terms of how we've supported the curriculum development in our LDC has been exactly the same as it has been across the school. You start with, what are the needs of these learners? What do you want these learners to have left, being able to demonstrate, being able to do, being able to understand by the time they have left? They finish their journey with us at St Julian's. So the conceptual knowledge may have been adapted from the rest of the school, and the context too may look slightly different to meet the needs of the learners. For example, there's more aspects of the curriculum focused on the development of pupils' social and emotional skills in ways that you wouldn't necessarily see in other areas of the school. So how to make a purchase, how to use public transport, using basic kitchen equipment. But it started with the same question: what's the point in these subjects? What do we want students to be able to do, be able to understand? How can we meet the needs of our learners? And in the LDC, pupils generally follow entry pathways courses as well. So there are opportunities for students to gain relevant qualifications too by the end of year 11.
Great. Thanks very much, Amy.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's move to a younger age group and let's have a chat about what's going on in Langstone. I know when our inspectors visited, I think one of the things that struck them was your strapline and vision for the school, real children having real experiences in the real world. And so I wondered whether you could sort of expand on that and tell us how that vision has influenced your approach to the curriculum.
Thank you, certainly, Claire. So our curriculum development and design has been a journey for us at Langstone, and alongside, I've been the head now since April, and we had a previous head, Mrs. Beverly Cole. I've worked with her for a long time. So we've come on this journey together, and now she's left me on my own to carry on with our passionate team. We wanted a curriculum that was authentic, relevant and exciting. And as I said, it's been a journey. We evaluate, we're very reflective at Langstone. So we don't do things unless there's a real purpose and a real drive and real impact on the learning for the children. And we're really lucky we've got a team of passionate teaching staff and children who really do love to learn. So we wanted to keep the buzz. You mentioned the buzz, Tony. We wanted children to be excited and responsive to the ever-changing world so they can succeed. There's so many links. It's lovely to hear from the secondary context about what the children need to be and be able to do as they leave us and go into the ever-changing world. So we co-constructed it with all our stakeholders. We bounced ideas off ourselves, and we liked the real as a little anagram for rich, engaging, authentic learning. And we stick to that. Since 2008, we embraced project-based learning. And I think since 2008, we haven't repeated one project. We come up, children sometimes, or staff usually come up with creative titles. No Outsiders, for example, To Infinity and Beyond, Blast from the Past, Express Yourselves. Then we usually launch them with a really exciting whole school project launch. We like to dress up and do a little bit of role play and acting and music and things like that to really inspire and engage the children. And obviously the learning then is influenced by the pupils. The pupils influence that and the teachers. And our teachers plan collaboratively and creatively, responding to the needs and interests of the children.
Sounds really interesting.
It is exciting.
And exciting to be there, but...
Can I just come in on that point as well?
Can.
Because what you said about those projects and how you haven't repeated any projects over I don't know, almost 7.
A long time.
A long time.
Yeah.
That is quite an achievement, isn't it? Because I think that's moving quite a lot from the old style curriculum that we used to have, in terms of almost you'd be repeating some key themes and some key topics over a number of years, following a pattern. Some pupils would be in year 4 and they'd be doing almost the same kind of themes in year 6, or the same kind of projects. So that's quite a different approach to the curriculum then, isn't it?
Of course, Curriculum for Wales is at the heart. The 4 purposes are there, and we say to our teaching teams as they're planning the learning that obviously if it's not developing the 4 purposes, then we shouldn't be doing it. Obviously certain things, certain texts, there's amazing learning that teachers do pull on again because it links, but it just keeps us looking, it keeps a fresh look. We like to keep things fresh, and pedagogy is key. So it's rooted in pedagogy, and learning is developed step by step, planning for progression, and pupils, love to learn. It keeps it exciting, it keeps it fresh. It means we can link to things that are happening in the real world, within Newport, within Wales, and within the wider world, and with current initiatives and things like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting because our inspectors talked about a sort of really interesting conversation, an important conversation they had with you about the link between high quality teaching and high quality curriculum. And I wondered how you had made sure they were very strongly linked in the way you design the curriculum.
Yeah, so the head teacher and I and our leadership team are very well established. We're really lucky. We've got a team of really passionate teaching staff. Pedagogy really is, they love to teach, they love to learn. We've got a real lifelong learning focus at our school, like at St Julian's. We're all learners, we're all in it together. We keep pedagogy at the forefront, and we've developed a culture of consistent, high-quality teaching across the school. Progression's evident. There's so much consistency. You can walk around the school and see lots of the same highly effective teaching and learning strategies. Teachers have built up a toolkit that they share. We have teaching and learning teams, so teachers don't plan in isolation. It's all about collaboration, sharing, building on each other's strengths. We plan our projects are usually whole school, not always. Sometimes different phases decide that they need to go down a different route, but usually at least 2 out of our 3 projects are whole school. So then the AOLE teams can influence with their project expertise. The older, more experienced staff can influence. We focus on, different AOLEs do have a higher focus throughout the year because it's really difficult to keep all balls in the air at the same time, isn't it, and focus on everything. Our embedded MER cycle is really helpful. We do learning walks, listening to learners, lesson observations to really make sure that we have got the consistency and the progression, and that planned activities, develop pedagogically sequenced blocks of learning. And that's another thing that we've introduced actually alongside the curriculum, is a block of learning, not a weekly plan, a fortnightly plan. We do meaningful blocks. We aim for deep conceptual learning. So the block can last as long or as little as it needs to ensure. I often use the phrase that Amy used, just because you've taught something doesn't mean the children have learned it. And actually it's about, really deep understanding and learning. We have BLP really embedded at our school. That stands for Building Learning Power. We introduced that in 2004 and we've kept it going. It's a focus on metacognition. And when the Curriculum for Wales came in, it really aligns, perfectly. Our children are striving to be resilient, reciprocal, resourceful and reflective learners, and we've got a consistent use of language across the school. Even our youngest learners regularly say, I won't give up, I'm being resilient, I'm keeping on trying. And there's a lovely buzz about learning. Children in Langstone love to learn and really do enjoy the challenge. That's one of our other favourite words. We love a challenge at Langstone.
It's really interesting, and there are lots of similarities between the messages coming through both schools. I mean, keeping the focus on the children, when I read your report, there was a sentence that jumped out, and it says, the children have high expectations of themselves. I wonder, that doesn't happen by accident.
No,
how did you get there?
I like to say nothing happens by accident, actually. So all of this, although it may seem seamless, mightn't it, when a visitor comes to your school, actually it's a lot of hard work, it's a lot of consistency, it's a lot of role modelling, it's everybody having a shared vision, a shared focus. One of our very successful things that's very, very well embedded is our Chili Challenge approach. Chili Challenge, I don't know if I'm allowed to say Nando's, but it kind of originated there. And all learning, teachers plan learning. They plan together in teams, often across year groups. So, for example, year 1 and 2, year 3 and 4, year 5 and 6. And it's differentiated by these chilies, usually mild, spicy, hot, sometimes extra mild, sometimes extra hot. And really the children dip into the learning at the right stage for them, not the age, but the stage. And they look at the learning, and the children are brilliant. People ask us sometimes, well, do they not always just go for the easy option? Well, they don't. They know exactly where they are. They love a challenge. They also know that they can move within the chili. So you'll often hear, it sounds probably strange if you're not used to hearing it every day, but you'll regularly hear children say, I started on spicy and I've now moved on to hot. And they're really excited by that. Equally so, if they try a hot challenge, it's a little bit tricky today. There's absolutely no stigma to going and doing a few spicy for their confidence. And they'll often say things like, oh, I've done rainbow maths today. I started on mild. I was confident with mild. So I've challenged myself. So I think, in that way, the children have high expectations. They aspire. They're always wanting to do the best chili that they can. And I think they've got high expectations of their peers in terms of behaviour for learning and, wanting to learn. It's not geeky to be a lifelong learner. It's exciting and, that's what they aspire to be.
In terms of those chili challenges where pupils essentially get a choice, don't they, of the challenge involved in each of the tasks that they'll be choosing. How long did that take to establish as a school? Particularly, I guess, getting the pupils to, have their own independence to choose for themselves the level of challenge. And you mentioned high expectations, the pupils themselves having high expectations of themselves. For a school out there thinking about taking the same approach, are we talking about years to establish something like this?
Probably years until it's totally embedded. But you can, there's small steps, isn't it? Like everything, like pedagogy, it's step-by-step approach. We initially introduced it in maths, which seemed the most obvious place to do that. And it's, it's probably easy because it's very skills-based, isn't it, maths, to think about, okay, so if I'm doing multiplication, my mild challenge would be repeated addition. And if I'm moving on to spicy, the children will be doing repeated addition, and then they'd have a go at drawing arrays. We also live the concrete pictorial approach to learning, which again is easiest in maths, but you can apply it in so many different ways. So as we realised the success of it then in our maths, we moved it into other areas of the curriculum. And as each AOLE team had a look at it, it became really important. It also made us look back to the learning descriptions, the learning intentions. What is the point of this block of learning? And then using those descriptions, thought about, okay, so a mild learner would be aspiring to achieve this, and a spicy learner. There's obviously links between, and it's nice how the children, we often stick these in the learning. If it's recorded, it's be stuck in their book. It might often be on a PowerPoint, so the children can see. It's also really useful, you mentioned assessment for learning, for professionals, the teachers and the teaching assistants, to know if they're doing a close the gap or if they're doing a challenge question, the next step of learning for that child. So I think, it's easy to start, and then it's trickier to keep going. And then apply, keeping momentum. And our MER cycle, helps as well to just make sure that, and our team planning. So sometimes someone's got a very exciting idea, for example, and then the team will say, okay, so how will that look? What will our mild and our spicy and our hot look like?
I mean, we've heard lots of golden nuggets this morning. It's been really interesting. But I wonder if there's one piece of advice you would give other schools as they embark on creating a successful curriculum. Maybe, Amy, any ideas?
I'd say invest in your workforce, develop your staff, invest in high quality professional learning. For us, it's all about evidence and research informed approaches. And I think, it's easy, isn't it, to become doers and not thinkers. You could fall into the trap of just ticking boxes and a compliance model where you're covering the framework, but you haven't got the capacity to continually evaluate what you're doing and evaluate whether it's still fit for purpose, whether it's impacting on pupil progression. And so by investing in your workforce and developing their skills to be able to effectively design but also evaluate, builds capacity for continual improvement.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Amy. Any thoughts, Jude?
Yeah, I think mine's very similar. It actually builds on that to make sure ensure that staff do have a voice and that ideas are co-constructed, and that ensures buy-in. You're all together, you're working together to an agreed focus, and I think then be clear and be consistent and stick at it.
Great. Really good advice there. Well, thank you for listening. Today's podcast is focused on Curriculum for Wales, and we've been delighted to be joined by two of our successful schools, Amy from St Julian's in Newport and Jude from Langstone Primary, also in Newport. Thank you very much for joining us. That's been a fascinating discussion about your implementation of the curriculum. Every school is different, but we can all learn from listening to one another. If you want more information to support your work on curriculum, please have a look at our website. You'll find a range of case studies, inspection reports, thematic reports, and quite a few improvement resources. And of course, you can read more about the Chief Inspector's annual report. We always welcome feedback on our resources, so please share any comments with us. We want to ensure that whatever we put out there is helpful to improve practice in schools. So if you think something is particularly helpful, it would be good to hear. But if you think we're not quite hitting the mark with some of those resources, please get in touch as well. Sharing best practice through a podcast is a very new approach for us. So tell us what you think about it. Please email us at communications@estyn.gov.wales or share your thoughts on our social media channels. So special thanks to Amy and Jude for joining us this morning, and of course my colleague Tony Bate. But thank you all for listening. Bye for now.